In this video, we are going to first explain what a static charge is. Then we're going to look at some of the different types of charges and how they interact with each other. And then finally, we're going to look at how charged objects interact with each other's using the laws of attraction and repulsion. So to begin with, if you recall, an atom is made up of three different types of subatomic particles. We have protons, which are positively charged. We have neutrons, which have a neutral charge. And we have electrons, which have a negative charge. So atoms contain electrically charged particles and in varying different amounts, but overall atoms themselves are neutral. And this is really important for not only static charge, but also for electricity in general. And so in static charge, objects can be charged when electrons, or those negative charges, move from one object to another. And a static charge is specifically the buildup of charge on the surface of an object. So if we take a look at our picture here, you can see that when we rub the balloon against the cat, we get this buildup of charge, static charge. So all of our negative electrons get built up here. And that is what we call static charge. And that's why the hair on the cat sort of stands up on its end like this. So in terms of overall charge of an object, it really kind of depends on the balance between electrons and protons. So in a neutral atom, if we recall, we have the same number of electrons as protons. So the negative charges is equal to the positive charges. If we have something that's overall negatively charged, then it has more electrons than protons. Or we would say that the negative charge is bigger or greater than the positive charge. For positively charged, it's the opposite way. So more protons than electrons. And that means that the negative charge is much less than the positive charge. Okay? And so this is going to be, as we see and as we go through our electricity unit and through static charge, that knowing whether something's negatively or positively charged and how many electrons and what that balance is between our different charges is going to be really helpful to describe what is going on beneath the surface. So as I showed before in that picture with the cat and the balloon, when we rub a balloon on the cat's hair stands up on end. Well, this is an example of something called charging by friction. So friction just means we are rubbing two objects together. And when we take two neutral objects and we rub them together, the electrons, so our negative charges from one object, are going to transfer to the other object. And that is what we call charging by friction. So in our picture here, for example, we have an uncharged cloth and an uncharged plastic rod. So both of these are neutral. But if we were to rub them together, then electrons in this case transfer from the rod onto the cloth. Okay, so what that's going to do is give the cloth an overall negative charge and give the rod an overall positive charge. Now we'll get into, in a later video, how do you know what charge which object is going to take? So that is coming up shortly in a separate video. Now, in terms of how charges attract each other or repel each other, there are two laws that we do need to know. The first is the law of attraction. So you may have heard the term or the phrase opposites attract. So this applies in electricity as well, in that opposite charges are going to attract one another. So if you have a negative charge and if you have a positively charged item, they are going to be attracted to each other. The law of repulsion, on the other hand, says that like charges are going to repel each other. So if you bring two objects close together and they both have positive charges, they're going to want to repel. They're going to want to move away from each other. Same with two negative charges. If they come close together, they're going to want to repel and move away from each other. Okay? We can then use the laws of attraction and repulsion to explain, for example, what happens when you rub a balloon on your hair. So, when you rub a balloon on your hair, what you're doing is you're charging by friction. You're taking two neutral objects. So, a balloon and your hair are originally neutral, but when you rub it against your hair, you are going to create charge and static charge. And the electrons are going to transfer from one object to the other. Now, like I said in a later video, we will figure out which one's going to go where. But in this case, electrons transfer from your hair onto the balloon. What that's going to leave you with then is an excess positive charge on the hair and an excess negative charge on the balloon. So the balloon and the hair are going to attract each other because we have opposite charges. We have the positive charge and the negative charge, so they are going to be attracted to each other. So that's an example of the law of attraction. Okay, so all of these different pieces coming together. So the definition of static charge, how we create charges by friction, and also the laws of attraction and repulsion can help us explain many different concepts within static electricity. That's it then for this video. Let's move on to our next task.